Here it is. So, if you're as big of a fan of Avatar: Last Airbender as I am, you've probably already heard this news. But the actress who's going to be portraying Toph has said that, quote, my version of Toph is going to be a little older and slightly more feminine. I feel like I wanted to work into a very humanizing space for her because, she was a cartoon. I wanted to work into a very humanizing space for her, so she's kind of saying that like being feminine is more humanizing, and that was okay for her to be a tomboy because she was a cartoon, but I want her to be a little bit more humanized, so I have to make her feminine. I don't know. I have an issue with that point. You're basically just saying that like being a tomboy is dehumanizing and that was only okay because she was a cartoon. That's kind of what it feels like she's saying to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm misinterpreting that quote, but it just feels a little yucky. But the part that people have had a bigger issue with is that first sentence. My version of Toph is going to be a little older and slightly more feminine. And listen, I don't think that the being older part is going to be much of an issue. In the original series, Toph was 12, and I think that it's maybe a little bit tricky to find a 12-year-old who can portray Toph as intensely as she's portrayed in the cartoon. So I think that the choice of going with someone a little bit older and, maybe a little bit better at acting than a 12-year-old would be, I think that that probably was a wise choice. And so I think that that's fine. I think that's fine. I think that you can have Toph's character be older. Heck, I think you could have Toph's character be like in her 20s, really. And you could still write the story more or less in the same way. The bigger issue here is that they're making Toph more feminine. Toph's character in the animated series basically has two sides. The side that she shows in front of her parents, because her parents want her to be all prim and proper and, basically follow all of the noble fanciness and be feminine and all of those kinds of things. And then the side that she feels like is truly her, which is who she is when she's traveling with the gang and who she is when she sneaks out to do her little underground fight club. If you make Toph too feminine, then that kind of undermines that juxtaposition there of who she's presenting herself as to her parents and who she really is. And that's a really major point for Toph's story. So if you make her too feminine, you're kind of getting rid of that space to tell that story. And I think that that's a really important story to be told within the context of the show. Now, I think one of the reasons that the show hit so hard originally and why it was so popular and why it was so impactful is because of these character stories that are being told. And I don't know, it didn't go very well with Sokka. You change who he is, and now part of his story is gone. And you change who Toph is, and that's gonna take a major hit on her story. Honestly, Toph, I feel like, is one of the most beloved characters in the show. Even after the show, even in Korra, she's still such a beloved character. She's one of the strongest earthbenders to pretty much ever have lived, probably since Avatar Kyoshi. She invented metal bending. She invented tremor sense. She is such an amazing, powerful character, and she is so beloved by the audience. You don't need to change her. The one thing that has me not super worried about this is that she says slightly more feminine. And I think that you can make Toph slightly more feminine and not have that have too much of a detrimental impact on her story. But I think if you make her too feminine, that's when you start running the risk of degrading her story and her character arc. The other thing that makes me say don't change Toph at all is that she is great representation for people who don't fit in, right? Because she's this character that her parents and probably society as a whole wants her to act a certain way because she is the kid of a noble family. And so she's supposed to be all prim and proper, and she hates that. So to have a character on screen that can represent that idea of I'm not fitting in and I can't be the person that my family wants me to be, but I can still be this strong, amazing person. Like, hers is a story of hope. and a story of change and a story of being your genuine self. And so when you start messing with her character too much, you're taking away that story, you're taking away that inspiration. And I think that ultimately that's just going to hurt the show as a whole. Again, the original series was so impactful and so just brilliant in a lot of ways that now when you're kind of changing the characters to tell the story differently, which I think is fine. I think that you can change the characters a little bit, but again, so I'm just kind of worried they're going to ruin her ability to tell her story. And like I said, they're going to ruin having representation, because I'll tell you what, there are a lot of weird little kids out there that don't really fit in. I'll tell you, I was one of them, and I think that that's probably why I identified with Toph so much. You know, you see this character who is not the person that people expect her or want her to be, but she's still incredibly successful. And when she's allowed to be her genuine self, you see that she's one of the most powerful earthbenders out there. She's one of the most capable people out there. To me, Toph's story is a really inspiring story of how powerful being yourself can really be. And I think that that's a really important message for kids to see. I think that was a really important message for me to see when I was a kid. Like I said, I identified personally with Toph and I identified personally with her story. And so, to all the weird little kids out there, I think it's really important that you don't change Toph too much, because we need to see her being different. We need to see her not fitting in. That is a major key part of her story. And if you make her too feminine, if you make her too much like the person that her parents want her to be, then that juxtaposition isn't going to be there. And that opportunity to tell that story is now going to be gone. I have quite a few complaints about the live action show so far. Ultimately, I feel like it's been okay. There are definitely some things that I feel like they should have done differently. And there are definitely some things that I'm like, I understand why you had to do that differently, because live action obviously is going to be different than an animated series. It's a different medium. Your capacity to tell some of these stories is going to be a little bit different just from it being a different medium. So I understand that. I understand the necessity for some changes. But again, they're making changes that are now undermining the story that they want to tell. They're making character changes that are significant enough that now you're unable to tell some of the important stories from the original series. I think ultimately the original series was not just an entertaining and fun show, but it was something that taught a lot of really important lessons. And by changing these characters too much, they're gonna destroy the ability to teach these lessons. And they're gonna then kind of degrade the impact the show has. I'm not saying these things just because I disagree with these choices, and I'm not saying these things because I don't like the live action version. I'm saying these things because Avatar The Last Airbender is one of my favorite franchises of all time. I have the Avatar Last Airbender tabletop game, I've got the Kyoshi novels, I've got some of the graphic novels, I even have a little Aang action figure hanging out on one of my shelves. And so I see the potential that this show can be, and I care about this franchise so much that I want to see the live action version be the best that it can possibly be. And I've definitely seen some things in the first season that have degraded the show's ability to be the best that it can. I love this franchise so much that I want it to be amazing. And I fear that by them making these changes, they're going to undermine who Toph is as a character and their own ability to tell this very important story. I'm not a producer. I've never made a TV show. So I understand that there are things here that I don't know. And I understand that there are necessary changes that have to be made. But I think that they're trying to change too much. I think that if every fan made this show, they would all make it a little bit differently. But I think that there are certain things that you shouldn't change. And I think that Toph's lack of femininity is such a core essence of who she is, at least in the earlier stages of her character's development. Now, there's an episode later in season 2, Tales of Ba Sing Se, which is a very iconic episode for a lot of reasons. Like, literally, I could make a whole video just about that episode. But Toph's story with Katara is them just having a day out and doing girly things. And there's a scene where Toph talks about how she likes being girly and she likes spending this time with Katara and getting her makeup done and doing all of those things. And the only reason that that is such a powerful, impactful moment is because it's something that Toph is now choosing on her own terms, right? And that's such an important thing for her, that freedom, that ability to make that choice. Toph likes those feminine things, and she does enjoy them from time to time. But again, this character is about freedom in a lot of ways. And so by losing that juxtaposition of who she is versus who her parents want her to be, you're losing that story and you're losing the significance of that freedom. It's probably my favorite franchise, and I've watched it through a million times, and I know the characters like the back of my own hand. So seeing them make these changes like this, it's hurtful to me. You know, to see a show that's so meaningful and so impactful then being degraded. And I don't know. We'll see. I think that there's a lot of speculation and stuff around the show. Maybe it'll be fine. And maybe they either find a way to tell Toph's story while still having her be more feminine, or maybe they just don't overdo it on the femininity. There's a lot of things that could go wrong, and there's a lot of things that could go right still. So I guess we'll kind of just have to wait and see how things go. But yeah, I really hope they don't mess up my favorite show. If you liked this video, make sure that you like and subscribe. And in the comments, talk about if I'm right, if I'm wrong. You know, should they make Toph more feminine? Will that make her more relatable as a character? Or are they killing her relatability by making her just like every other female character out there, you know, by making them too feminine? And I don't know. Like and subscribe, leave a comment, do all of the stuff. I'm probably going to make more Avatar related videos. I mean, I'm still so early in my making video stage that I haven't really found what I like making videos about, what I don't like making videos about, but I love Avatar. And so I probably will make more videos about this. Like I said, I have a lot of strong opinions. Anyway, I'm yapping now. I already said like and subscribe. I already said comment. I don't know. That's the end of the video. 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 Have a pleasant afternoon. Okay, bye.